In a peaceful town blanketed by snow, an elderly black woman trudged home with her groceries. Along the roadway, she witnessed a Hell's Angel and his young daughter being shunned by the community. Against everyone's warnings, she welcomed the father and child into her home, even as the entire neighborhood condemned her. Nobody could have predicted that catastrophe was approaching, and the very person they had cast out would become their salvation. Before we continue with today's narrative, I understand that many of us seek straightforward, organic methods to maintain our vitality and strength. For this reason, I want to share Shillite Essential Extract with you. If you're interested in learning more, simply click the link in the description or use the QR code displayed on your screen. The season's initial snowfall descended gently and soundlessly over Millbrook, a modest community where faces were familiar and circumstances rarely shifted. Pale flakes drifted beyond the windows of St. Mary's Church as the Sunday morning worship neared its conclusion. Father Michael positioned himself at the pulpit, his compassionate voice resonating throughout the sparsely filled pews. Occasionally, he remarked, surveying the recognizable congregation, "God delivers unexpected visitors to examine our kindness." In the third row, Evelyn Carter occupied her seat in solitude, her silver hair carefully arranged, her hands clasped in her lap. At 60 years of age, she had claimed this identical spot every Sunday for the previous 15 years, ever since the industrial accident claimed her husband Thomas. And even earlier than that, since the illness took her sole son, Michael Jr., when he had reached only 7 years of age. She lowered her head as Father Michael's message flowed over her. The wooden bench felt more rigid than she recalled. The sanctuary felt more frigid. Everything seemed that way. Following the service, Evelyn navigated her aged sedan homeward through avenues, adorned with festive Christmas decorations that appeared to ridicule her isolation. Her residence stood at the terminus of Maple Street, a modest weathered two-level structure with flaking paint and a front veranda where Thomas's wooden rocking chair remained year after year, perpetually motionless. Within the house, the atmosphere was shadowy and chilly. Evelyn increased the thermostat, although she understood she would reduce it before retiring to conserve on the heating expense. In the kitchen, she warmed yesterday's soup. Excessive for one individual, but she consistently prepared too much, a pattern from when their household had numbered 3. She consumed her meal at the table in her customary position. Thomas's chair remained vacant opposite her. Michael's elevated seat had been absent for years, but she could still observe the small marks his footwear had created on the table support. "Only you and I this evening, Thomas?" she murmured to the vacant chair. The December gust shook the windows. The following morning, Evelyn bundled herself in her substantial coat and traveled to the town center for her weekly provisions. Millbrook's primary thoroughfare was festooned for Christmas with decorative garlands suspended between the lamp poles and an imposing tree positioned before the courthouse. She had just secured her vehicle when she detected the gathering. Approximately 20 individuals had assembled in front of Henderson's property office, their utterances escalating in pointed murmurs. Evelyn's chest constricted. In a community like Millbrook, assemblies signified difficulty. She advanced cautiously, her shopping container pressed to her torso. "I stated no, and that decision is absolute." Mr. Henderson's declaration thundered from the entrance of his establishment. "I refuse to lease to your category." Evelyn extended her neck to observe beyond the assembly. A man positioned himself on the pavement, imposing and powerfully built, his arms decorated in dark markings that extended up to his throat. He displayed a black leather garment with emblems, the variety she'd observed on television, the variety that indicated he was a motorcyclist. Hell's Angels, the most prominent emblem proclaimed across his dorsal region. In his embrace, he supported a small girl, perhaps 4 years of age, with disheveled blonde locks and a dirt-marked countenance. She concealed her face in her father's shoulder. "I possess the capability to remit in advance," the man stated, his tone subdued and measured. 3 months lease currency. "I'm indifferent if you possess 3 years lease," Henderson expelled. "I recognize your classification. You'll devastate the premises. Transport your gang associates around. We refuse that presence here." Mrs. Thompson, proprietor of the flower establishment, positioned herself at the assembly's forefront, her arms folded. He articulates correctly, you comprehend. This represents a respectable community. We maintain families present here, youngsters. The small girl in the motorcyclist's embrace elevated her head. Father, she expressed softly, are we destined to rest in the recreational area again this evening? The man's jaw tightened. He modified his grip on his daughter and rotated away without additional communication. The assembly commenced dispersing, muttering amongst themselves. Evelyn remained immobilized on the pavement, her cardiac organ pounding. That small girl, that diminutive voice inquiring about resting in a recreational area. She recalled Michael Jr.'s voice, so comparable, inquiring of her once, "Mother, for what reason is father not returning home?" 3 days following the memorial service, when he still failed to comprehend that departed signified eternally. Her extremities mobilized before her consciousness could restrain them. "Pardon me," she projected. The man halted, his dorsal region still oriented toward her. Gradually, he rotated. At proximity, Evelyn could observe he was more youthful than she'd estimated, perhaps 35, with a weathered countenance and eyes that contained excessive melancholy for someone his age. "Affirmative, madam," he articulated carefully. Evelyn's oral cavity felt parched. Every visual organ on the thoroughfare was presently focused on her. She could perceive Mrs. Thompson's observation penetrating into her dorsal region. She commenced, then purified her throat. "I possess a chamber, a modest one, if you possess no objection to it being modest." The man observed her, clearly distrustful. "You're proposing me a chamber?" "If you require one," Evelyn stated quietly. "It's insufficient, but it's heated, and it surpasses a recreational area." For an extended interval, he articulated nothing. Then gradually he acknowledged. "My designation's Jack," he stated. "Jack Miller. This represents my daughter, Lily. Evelyn Carter." She accomplished a modest expression at the small girl who observed her with inquisitive blue eyes. "For what reason don't you pursue me homeward? We can deliberate the particulars there." As Evelyn proceeded back to her vehicle, she could perceive the magnitude of the community's condemnation pressing against her shoulders. She detected Mrs. Thompson's penetrating murmur as she departed her consciousness. But when she surveyed back and observed Jack Miller carefully securing his daughter into the seat of his enormous Harley-Davidson motorcycle, modifying her diminutive helmet with such gentle consideration, Evelyn recognized she'd executed the correct determination, even if it was the determination that would transform everything. Jack's motorcycle resonated into Evelyn's driveway like cascading thunder, and within moments, every curtain on Maple Street was withdrawn with inquisitive, distrustful eyes observing outward. Evelyn simulated not detecting as she released her front entrance. "It's insufficient," she stated, conducting Jack and Lily interior. "But it's purified and heated." The residence emitted an aroma like cinnamon and aged timber. Jack positioned himself in the entrance, appearing uncomfortable, as if he wasn't confident he was permitted to advance on the heated carpet. "The chamber's ascending the stairs," Evelyn proceeded, ascending the groaning staircase. "Initial entrance on the correct side. There's a sleeping surface, a storage furniture piece, and a modest enclosure. The lavatories across the corridor." Jack pursued, transporting Lily on his lateral region and a weathered canvas container over his shoulder, apparently everything they possessed in existence. The chamber was modest, as guaranteed, with diminished floral covering and a transparent opening that surveyed over the snow-covered rear yard. But the sleeping surface was arranged with purified linens, and there was a modest space warming device in the angle. "It's flawless," Jack stated quietly. Lily maneuvered in his embrace until he positioned her downward. She immediately proceeded to the transparent opening, compressing her modest extremities against the transparent surface. "Father, observe. There's avian creatures." "That's the avian nourishment dispenser," Evelyn stated. "I position seeds outward every morning. You can assist me the following day if you'd prefer." Lily's countenance illuminated. Genuinely, Evelyn discovered herself expressing an authentic expression, the initial in more extended than she could recall. Jack purified his throat. Concerning the lease, Madam, Mrs. Carter, I signified what I articulated. I can remit in advance. He extended into his garment receptacle and extracted a modest velvet container. From it, he generated a gold bracelet, delicate and clearly aged. This was my spouse's. It's valued at minimum 1,000. You can retain it until... Negative, Evelyn stated firmly. I refuse your spouse's bracelet. Jack's countenance hardened. I'm not soliciting charitable assistance. And I'm not proposing it, Evelyn responded. I'm proposing a chamber for an equitable value, 50 currency units per 7-day period. Remitted when you can remit it. That bracelet remains with you. Your spouse would desire your daughter to possess it eventually. Jack observed her, his expression unreadable. Then his shoulders descended slightly, and Evelyn recognized it was relief. Gratitude, he stated, his voice coarse. You're welcomed. Evelyn rotated toward the entrance, then suspended. I customarily consume tea around 4. You're both welcomed to accompany me, and there's remaining soup for the evening meal if you're experiencing hunger. We're experiencing hunger, Lily proclaimed. Jack accomplished a modest expression. Lily, that's not courteous. It's acceptable, Evelyn stated. I consistently prepare excessive anyway. That evening, for the initial occasion in 15 years, Evelyn's kitchen table wasn't vacant. Lily occupied the chair that had once belonged to Michael Jr., oscillating her extremities and consuming soup with the enthusiastic disorder of a 4-year-old. Jack occupied where Thomas previously occupied, consuming gradually, cautiously, as if he still wasn't confident this was authentic. Following the evening meal, Evelyn prepared heated chocolate, and they relocated to the living chamber. Lily's eyes expanded considerably at the literature shelf in the angle. You possess so many volumes. Do you appreciate narratives? Evelyn inquired. Affirmative. Father recites to me every evening, even when we rest in the transportation vehicle. Jack's countenance flushed. Lily, it's acceptable, Evelyn stated gently. She extracted a worn duplicate of the Velveteen Rabbit from the shelf. This was my son's preference. Would you prefer me to recite it to you? Lily acknowledged eagerly and ascended onto the cushioned furniture adjacent to Evelyn. Within moments, she was positioned against Evelyn's lateral region, her eyes descending as Evelyn's gentle voice recited about the toy rabbit who desired to become authentic through being cherished. Jack observed from the armchair, his expression complex, gratitude and suffering combined together. When the narrative concluded, Lily was unconscious. She's depleted, Jack stated quietly. We've been on the pathway for 3 7-day periods. She hasn't rested in an authentic sleeping surface since we departed Nevada. What transported you to Millbrook? Evelyn inquired, maintaining her voice subdued. Jack was quiet for an extended interval. I received information there might be employment at the automotive establishment, and I desired to discover a location where we could establish ourselves. Lily requires stability. She requires to attend educational institution, establish companionships, possess a conventional childhood. His voice fractured slightly. Not this. What transpired to her mother? Evelyn inquired gently. If you possess no objection to me inquiring. Sarah expired when Lily was delivered. Jack observed his extremities. Marked, tattooed extremities that manipulated his daughter with such tenderness. Complications. The medical professionals stated it was uncommon, just adverse fortune. She was present one moment and then, he suspended. I'm so regretful, Evelyn murmured. I guaranteed her I'd provide for our infant, that Lily would possess an excellent existence. But, he indicated at himself at the markings, the leather garment positioned over the armchair. Observe me. Nobody desires to lease to an individual like me. Nobody desires to employ me for anything but manual exertion that doesn't remit sufficiently. And Lily deserves superior. She deserves a father who cherishes her, Evelyn stated firmly. That's what she deserves. And she possesses that. Jack surveyed up at her, his eyes suspiciously luminous. Let me assist you, Evelyn proceeded. I can observe Lily while you investigate for employment. I miss possessing someone to provide for. I can't solicit you to. You're not soliciting, I'm proposing, Evelyn expressed at the unconscious youngster. Besides, I contemplate she and I are destined to be excellent companions. The initial 7-day period transpired quietly, excessively quietly. Every morning, Jack departed early on his motorcycle, investigating for employment. He discovered irregular occupations, assisting at construction locations, repairing vehicles in dorsal passages, unloading transportation vehicles. He returned homeward depleted, emitting an aroma of motor lubricant and perspiration. But he consistently possessed an expression for Lily. And every morning following Jack's departure, Evelyn and Lily descended into a gentle routine. They nourished the avian creatures together. Evelyn instructed Lily the designations: cardinals, blue jays, sparrows. They manufactured cookies, Lily positioning on a graduated stool to assist agitate, obtaining flour throughout every location. They recited volumes, executed puzzles, and generated illustrations that Evelyn suspended on the refrigeration device. Grandmother EV, Lily designated her presently. Not Mrs. Carter, just Grandmother EV. The designation made Evelyn's cardiac organ experience suffering in the optimal conceivable manner. But exterior the heated protection of the residence on Maple Street, the community of Millbrook was not satisfied. It commenced with murmurs at the provisions establishment. Evelyn detected individuals descending silent when she advanced, then resuming their communications in suppressed tones following she transpired. Then arrived the observations, pointed, condemnatory. Mrs. Thompson made her disapprobation evident when Evelyn halted by the flower establishment to acquire tulips for the kitchen table. I'm astonished to observe you present, Mrs. Thompson stated coldly, not encountering Evelyn's eyes as she enclosed the flowers. Given your residence visitor. Jack and Lily are delightful tenants. Evelyn responded calmly. Tenants? Mrs. Thompson's oral openings compressed. Is that what we're designating it? Evelyn, individuals are concerned about you. That man is hazardous. Those individuals, motorcyclists, they're lawbreakers. Everyone recognizes that. Jack is a father attempting to provide for his daughter, Evelyn stated, her voice more penetrating than intended. There's nothing unlawful about that. You don't recognize what he's executed, what he might execute. Mrs. Thompson inclined forward, reducing her voice. I'm articulating this as a companion, Evelyn. You're positioning yourself in hazard, and individuals are communicating. Let them communicate, Evelyn stated, obtaining her flowers and departing. But the communication deteriorated. At Sanctuary the subsequent Sunday, the bench adjacent to Evelyn remained conspicuously vacant. The females who customarily acknowledged her following service proceeded beyond without communication. When she proceeded to the baking establishment on Tuesday, Mr. Kowalski, who'd dispensed her bread every Tuesday for 20 years, maintained he was dispensed outward. She could observe the fresh loaves on the shelf behind him. On Thursday evening, Evelyn discovered a communication adhered to her front entrance. No identification, just 3 expressions in indignant capital characters. Send them away. She compressed it upward before Jack could observe, but her extremities were oscillating. That evening, Jack detected something was incorrect. Everything satisfactory? He inquired as they purified dishes following the evening meal. Acceptable, Evelyn fabricated. Evelyn, he stated her designation gently. I recognize I'm generating you difficulties. She desired to refuse it, but Jack wasn't unintelligent. He'd observed the observations, also perceived the hostility radiating from the community. It's nothing I can't manipulate, she stated finally. Perhaps Lily and I should depart. Negative. The expression emerged fierce, almost indignant. Evelyn obtained a respiration. Negative, this is your residence presently, both of you. Don't permit small consciousness individuals dictate where you obtain to reside. Jack examined her countenance. For what reason are you executing this? Genuinely? Evelyn was quiet for an extended interval. Because when my son expired, this entire community transported casseroles and sympathy communications. They occupied my residence with flowers and guarantees that I'd never be isolated. She positioned downward the dish she was purifying. But following the memorial service, they disappeared. The casseroles halted arriving. The residents obtained quiet, and I recognized that sympathy is effortless. Actually being present, actually observing someone who's struggling and executing something about it, that's difficult. Most individuals can't be concerned. Her voice was substantial with emotion. You and Lily required assistance. I possessed assistance to contribute. It's that straightforward. Jack's eyes were illuminating. It's not straightforward. It's extraordinary. It's what anyone should execute, Evelyn stated. But she recognized they both recognized that's not what Millbrook contemplated. The fracturing position arrived on a frigid Tuesday evening. 2 7-day periods following Jack and Lily had relocated inward. There was a percussion at the entrance, penetrating, official. Evelyn released it to discover Sheriff Barrett positioning on her veranda, his extremity resting on his belt, his countenance apologetic but firm. Evening, Evelyn, he stated. Behind him, she could observe Mrs. Thompson positioning on the pavement, her communication device in her extremity. Sheriff, Evelyn maintained her voice horizontal. What can I execute for you? I require to communicate with Jack Miller if he's present. He's ascending the stairs, positioning Lily to sleeping surface. Is there a difficulty? We've possessed concerns elevated about Mr. Miller's presence in community. I just require to solicit him a few inquiries. Evelyn's chest tightened. What classification of concerns? Presently, Evelyn, don't make this difficult. I'm just executing my occupation. Sheriff Barrett, you've recognized me for 30 years. Do I appear threatened to you? The sheriff oscillated uncomfortably. It's not about what I contemplate. I've obtained complaints. I have to pursue upward. Complaints from whom? But Evelyn didn't require to solicit. She could observe Mrs. Thompson's satisfied expression. Footsteps on the staircase. Jack materialized in the corridor, his countenance immediately guarded when he observed the uniform. Difficulty, officer? His voice was carefully neutral. Jack Miller. That's correct. I'm Sheriff Barrett. I require to solicit you a few inquiries. Do you possess any outstanding authorizations? Any parole circumstances I should recognize about? Negative, sir. I've never been detained. The sheriff surveyed, astonished. Never. Never. Jack's jaw was rigid. I recognize what you're contemplating. Individual like me must possess a record. Correct? But I don't. You can examine. I will examine, the sheriff stated. In the interim, I require to verify that Mrs. Carter present is permitting you to remain of her own voluntary determination. Of course I am, Evelyn stated, indignation ascending in her voice. I invited them. This is my residence, Sheriff, and I'll determine who resides in it. Madam, I comprehend, but negative, I don't contemplate you do comprehend. Evelyn advanced forward. Jack Miller is my tenant. He remits his lease on occasion. He's respectful. He assists around the residence, and his daughter is a delight. The sole difficulty I possess is with the individuals in this community who are so occupied condemning a man by his appearance that they can't observe the respectable human being correct in front of them. Sheriff Barrett elevated his extremities. Satisfactory, satisfactory. I detect you, Evelyn. Mr. Miller, I apologize for the intrusion, but you comprehend, I had to pursue upward. I comprehend, Jack stated quietly. Following the sheriff departed, Evelyn positioned in her entrance and observed directly at Mrs. Thompson, who was still positioning on the pavement, her communication device presently downward at her lateral region. Satisfied, Helen? Evelyn projected outward. Mrs. Thompson possessed the grace to appear uncomfortable. She rotated and hastened away. Jack enclosed the entrance gently. Evelyn, I contemplate. Don't, Evelyn stated. Don't articulate you should depart. Don't articulate you're regretful. Don't contribute these individuals what they desire. They're making your existence infernal. They're revealing who they genuinely are, Evelyn corrected, and instructing me who my authentic companions are. Transpires there aren't many. She accomplished a melancholy expression. But that's satisfactory. I've obtained you and Lily. That's sufficient. Ascending the stairs, Lily projected outward. Father, is everything satisfactory? Jack's countenance softened. Affirmative. Infant. Everything's acceptable. Depart to unconsciousness. But everything wasn't acceptable, and they both recognized it. 3 days subsequently, everything transformed. It was a Friday evening, unseasonably frigid, with a bitter gust that penetrated through layers of covering. Evelyn was in the kitchen manufacturing evening meal, a pot roast, because Jack had finally obtained steady employment at Mallister's automotive establishment, and she desired to celebrate. Lily was at the table generating color, and Jack was ascending the stairs repairing the leaking faucet in the lavatory. Then the alert commenced, penetrating, proximate, obtaining more proximate. Evelyn proceeded to the transparent opening. Fire transportation vehicles were accelerating downward Main Street. Their lights illuminated the snow in crimson and white. This must be serious, Jack observed, stepping into the kitchen doorway. The sirens grew in number. Now police vehicles and ambulances joined the chorus. Evelyn's stomach tightened with dread. In a community like Millbrook, such a concentration of emergency responders indicated something catastrophic had occurred. The telephone rang. It was Susan Miller from the library, one of the handful of people who maintained contact with Evelyn. There's a blaze, Susan reported breathlessly. In the old warehouse district. It's advancing rapidly. And dear God, Evelyn, there are individuals trapped within. Some young people were hosting a gathering in the abandoned structure. Evelyn's blood turned to ice. Teenagers, at least 5 or 6 of them. The fire department is attempting to reach them, but the building's structural integrity is compromised. It's dire, Evelyn. Truly dire. Jack was already in motion. Where? He demanded. The warehouse district, Evelyn replied, her hand shaking as she ended the call. There are children. Jack was already pulling on his boots and his leather vest. Remain here with Lily. Jack, you're not obligated to. Yes, I am, he stated plainly. Then he vanished, the thunder of his motorcycle dissolving into the wail of sirens. Evelyn stood motionless in her kitchen, her hands covering her mouth. Lily glanced up from her coloring, puzzled. Where is Daddy going? To assist some people, sweetheart, Evelyn managed. Let's offer a prayer for him. She knelt beside Lily's chair and clasped the little girl's hands. Together they prayed. Something Evelyn hadn't done with such urgent devotion since the night Thomas passed away. The warehouse district was pandemonium. Flames had consumed the old Murphy building, fire erupting through shattered windows and reaching toward the night sky. The heat was overwhelming, even from across the street where a crowd had assembled behind the police barriers. Jack forced his way through, his eyes surveying the scene. Firefighters were calling out instructions, directing water at the inferno, but it was evident they were fighting a losing battle. The structure was ancient, filled with dried timber and decades of accumulated refuse. It was burning like tinder. Step back. A police officer attempted to halt Jack. Civilians must stay. There are kids inside. Jack cut him off. The fire department is managing it. Are they extracting them? The officer's expression revealed everything. They weren't. The building was too unstable, the fire too intense. They were waiting for the structure to give way, hoping the kids had discovered an exit on their own. Jack didn't hesitate. He simply acted. He breached the barricade, disregarding the shouts behind him. The main entrance was an inferno, impassable, but there was a side entrance, partially obstructed by debris. He kicked it once, then twice. It surrendered. Smoke billowed out, dense and black. Jack pulled his bandana up over his nose and mouth and dove inside. The heat was unbearable. The air was toxic. Jack could scarcely see 3 feet ahead of him. "Hello," he called out. "Is anyone here?" A scream, faint, somewhere to his left. He pursued the sound, crawling now because the smoke was thicker near the ceiling. His eyes were streaming, his lungs searing. There, in the corner, huddled behind a collapsed shelf, 3 teenagers. 2 boys and a girl, coughing, terrified. "We can't escape," one of the boys sobbed. The stairs gave way. "Come with me," Jack rasped. "This way. Keep low." He guided them back toward the side door, one hand on the wall to navigate. The building groaned around them, the fire roaring like something alive. They made it outside. The teenagers collapsed on the sidewalk, gasping for air. Paramedics rushed forward. "There's more." Jack gripped a firefighter's arm. "How many more?" "2 more kids. But the building's about to collapse any moment." Jack turned back. "You can't go back in there," someone shouted. But he had already disappeared. The second entry was worse. Part of the ceiling had given way, blocking his previous route. Jack had to find an alternative path, crawling through spaces barely wide enough for his shoulders, the heat blistering his skin. He found them in what had once been an office, a boy, perhaps 16, and a little girl around 7 or 8. The boy was unconscious, and the little girl was crying hysterically. "It's all right," Jack told her, his voice hoarse from smoke. "I've got you." He lifted the unconscious boy over his shoulder. Jesus, he was heavy, and grasped the little girl's hand. "Don't release my hand," he instructed her. "No matter what happens." Getting out took forever. Every breath was torture. Jack's vision was darkening at the edges, his legs threatening to buckle. The little girl was coughing so violently she could barely walk. Behind them, something massive crashed, part of the second floor collapsing. "Almost there," Jack urged. "Come on, sweetheart. Just a bit further." And then they emerged. Fresh air struck Jack's face like salvation. He collapsed on the pavement, still clutching the little girl's hand. The unconscious boy beside him. Hands pulled at him, paramedics, firefighters. Someone placed an oxygen mask on his face. "You're insane," a firefighter was saying, though he was grinning. "Completely insane. And a goddamn hero." Jack couldn't respond. He was coughing too violently, his entire body trembling. The little girl was crying. "My brother. Is my brother all right?" "He's breathing," a paramedic reassured her. "You're both going to be fine, thanks to this man." Through the crowd, Jack spotted a face he recognized. Mrs. Thompson, standing behind the barricade, her phone held up. She had been recording the entire incident. Evelyn's phone rang at 9:47 p.m. "Mrs. Carter?" An unfamiliar voice spoke. "This is Millbrook Memorial Hospital. We have a Jack Miller here. He requested we contact you." Evelyn's world tilted. "Is he all right?" "He's being treated for smoke inhalation. He'll recover fully, but he wanted you to know he's safe." Evelyn called Susan to watch Lily and drove to the hospital faster than she'd ever driven in her life. She found Jack in the emergency room, an oxygen mask covering his face, his skin blackened with soot. When he saw her, he attempted to smile. "Don't you dare," Evelyn said, her voice breaking. "Don't you dare," Evelyn said, her voice breaking. "Don't you dare smile at me as if that wasn't the most foolish, most reckless." She stopped, pressing her hand to her mouth. Jack pulled the mask aside. "The kids are safe," he rasped. "All 5 of them. You could have died. But I didn't." He reached for her hand. "And those kids are alive. That matters more." Evelyn sat down in the chair beside his bed, still holding his hand, and wept. She wept for Jack, for the children he'd rescued, for her son whom no one had been able to save, for the loneliness that had devoured her life until 2 weeks ago. Jack squeezed her hand and said nothing, because there was nothing to say. Outside the hospital, a video was spreading virally. The video had 17,000 views by morning. By noon, it had 200,000. By Sunday, it was everywhere. The shaky footage captured everything: Jack running into the burning building while everyone else stood paralyzed, the agonizing minutes of waiting, the first group of teenagers stumbling out, Jack disappearing back inside, the crowd's horrified gasps, the building groaning as if it might collapse any second. Then Jack emerging a second time, carrying an unconscious boy, holding a little girl's hand, his face blackened with soot, but his expression determined, gentle. The caption Mrs. Thompson had added read, "Local biker risks life to save children from warehouse fire. This is Jack Miller. Remember his name." The comments were overwhelming. "This man is a hero. Look at how gentle he is with that little girl. My heart." Everyone was afraid of him because of how he looks, but he's the only one who ran toward danger. We need more people like this in the world. The local news covered it. Then the national news. By Monday, a reporter from CNN was calling Evelyn's house. Jack, recovering at home with bandaged hands and a persistent cough, was mortified by the attention. "I just did what anyone would do," he kept insisting. "No," Evelyn corrected him. "You did what no one else was willing to do. There's a difference." The town of Millbrook, confronted with undeniable evidence of their own prejudice, didn't quite know how to respond. Some people, like Mrs. Thompson, were genuinely contrite. She appeared on Evelyn's doorstep Tuesday afternoon with a casserole and tears in her eyes. "I was wrong," she said simply. "About Jack, about you. I let fear and assumptions guide me instead of actually seeing what was in front of me." She wiped her eyes. "My granddaughter was one of the kids he saved. Emily, the 7-year-old. She snuck out to follow her older brother to that party. If Jack hadn't gone back in, she couldn't finish." "He did go back in," Evelyn said gently. "That's what matters. I spent 2 weeks calling you foolish, calling him dangerous." Mrs. Thompson's voice broke. "And he saved my granddaughter's life." Others in town were slower to come around, embarrassed by their own behavior but not quite ready to admit they'd been wrong. They nodded at Jack on the street now instead of crossing to avoid him. Small gestures, but meaningful. But the biggest surprise came on Saturday morning. Evelyn was in the kitchen with Lily making pancakes when they heard it. A low rumble growing louder, the distinctive sound of multiple motorcycles. She went to the window and her jaw dropped. Riding down Maple Street was a convoy of bikers, at least 20 motorcycles, all Harley-Davidsons, all bearing the Hells Angels insignia. The entire neighborhood came out to watch, alarm on their faces. More trouble, they thought. More danger. But when the bikes parked in front of Evelyn's house and the riders dismounted, the first thing they did was remove their helmets respectfully. The leader, a massive man in his 50s with a gray beard and kind eyes, walked up to the porch where Jack had emerged, stunned. "Reaper," Jack said. "Brother," the man replied, and pulled Jack into a fierce embrace. "We heard what you did. Wanted to come pay our respects. You didn't have to." "Yes, we did." Reaper turned to Evelyn, who was standing in the doorway. "You must be Mrs. Carter." "Ma'am, I'm Daniel. They call me Reaper. Jack here used to ride with us before he became a father and decided he needed to go straight for his little girl's sake. We don't abandon our own," another biker added. "Never have, never will." What happened next was something Millbrook would discuss for years. The bikers unloaded their motorcycles. Lumber, tools, paint, groceries, children's clothes, toys. Without asking permission, they got to work on Evelyn's house, repairing the sagging porch, replacing broken shingles, repainting the fence. Lily was delighted, running from biker to biker, chattering away. They were gentle with her, these rough-looking men with their tattoos and leather, treating her as if she were made of glass. One biker, a woman named Raven with silver hair braided down her back, knelt down and handed Evelyn a wreath made of white roses. "For your husband," she said quietly. "Jack told us about him. About your son, too. This is for them, and for you, taking care of our brother when he needed it most." Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," she whispered. Slowly, cautiously, the people of Millbrook began to emerge from their houses. They watched the bikers work, watched them laugh with Lily, watched how respectful they were, how organized, how kind. Mrs. Thompson was the first to approach. She carried a pitcher of lemonade. "I thought perhaps you all would like something to drink," she said nervously. Reaper smiled at her. "That's mighty kind of you, ma'am. Thank you." That broke the ice. More neighbors came forward. Someone brought sandwiches. Someone else brought coffee. The teenage boys Jack had saved from the fire showed up with their parents, wanting to thank him in person. Emily, Mrs. Thompson's granddaughter, ran straight to Jack and threw her arms around his legs. "You saved me," she said, looking up at him with huge eyes. "You're my hero." Jack crouched down to her level, his face soft. "You're very brave, Emily. You stayed calm in there. That helped me find you." "I was scared," she admitted. "Being brave doesn't mean not being scared," Jack told her gently. "It means being scared and doing the right thing anyway." Emily's father, David Thompson, Mrs. Thompson's son, stepped forward. His eyes were red, his voice thick. "I don't know how to thank you. Emily is my whole world. When I got the call that she was trapped in that fire..." He couldn't continue. Jack stood and extended his hand. "You don't need to thank me. I'm just glad she's safe." David shook his hand, then pulled him into an unexpected embrace. "If you ever need anything at all, you call me. You hear me? Anything." By afternoon, Maple Street looked like a block party. The bikers had set up a small speaker system, playing classic rock at a reasonable volume. Someone started grilling hamburgers. Children who'd been taught to fear these leather-clad strangers were now climbing on their motorcycles, giggling as the bikers made engine sounds and pretended to race. Reaper found Evelyn in her garden, where she'd retreated for a moment of quiet. "Your home is beautiful, ma'am," he said, settling onto the bench beside her. "Thank you. My husband built that fence. That was the last project he finished before." She trailed off. "Jack told me about your losses." "I'm sorry." Evelyn nodded. "When Jack and Lily came into my life, I thought I was helping them. But really, they helped me. This house has been so quiet for so long. Now it's full of life again." Reaper smiled. "Jack's a good man. Always has been. People see the vest, the tattoos, and they think they know the whole story. But they don't know that Jack spent 3 years taking care of his dying mother before she passed. They don't know he's never touched drugs, never hurt anyone, never even gotten a speeding ticket." "Why did he join the Hells Angels?" Evelyn asked. "Because when his father beat him bloody and threw him out at 16, we were the ones who took him in, fed him, gave him a place to sleep, taught him how to fix bikes so he could make an honest living." Reaper's voice was firm. "People think we're all criminals. Some clubs, sure, they've got bad elements. But our chapter? We're mostly veterans, mechanics, fathers. We ride for charity. We escort abused kids to court so they don't have to face their abusers alone. We do toy runs every Christmas." "I didn't know that," Evelyn said softly. "Most people don't. They don't want to know. It's easier to judge." Reaper stood, adjusting his vest. "But you didn't judge, Mrs. Carter. You saw a man and his daughter who needed help, and you helped them. That's rare. Rarer than you might think." He walked back toward the house, leaving Evelyn with her thoughts. As the sun began to set, casting golden light over the gathering, something unexpected happened. Father Michael arrived. The elderly priest walked slowly up the driveway, his eyes taking in the scene. The bikers, the neighbors, the children playing together. "Father," Evelyn said, surprised. "I didn't expect you." "I heard there was quite a gathering here," Father Michael said with a gentle smile, "and I wanted to see the fruits of the seed I planted." "The seed you planted?" "My sermon 3 weeks ago, about unexpected guests testing our compassion." His eyes twinkled. "You were the only one who heard it, Evelyn. Really heard it. And look what came from one act of kindness." He gestured to the crowd. Mrs. Thompson laughing with Raven about something. David Thompson helping Jack carry wood. Emily sitting on Reaper's enormous shoulders, giggling. "You brought this community together," Father Michael continued. "Not through judgment or fear, but through love. Through seeing the humanity in someone everyone else had dismissed." "I just did what was right," Evelyn said. "Exactly." The priest squeezed her hand. "You did what was right, even when it was hard, even when it cost you. That's the definition of faith in action." As darkness fell, someone lit the fire pit in Evelyn's backyard. The crowd gathered around, and someone started telling stories. The bikers shared tales of their rides across America, the places they'd seen, the people they'd met. The townspeople shared their own stories, slowly at first, then with growing warmth. 3 months later, Evelyn's garden was blooming. She knelt in the dirt, showing Lily how to plant tomato seeds, while Jack worked on building a small greenhouse against the side of the house. "Like this, Grandma Evie?" Lily asked, carefully pressing a seed into the soil. "Perfect, sweetheart. Just like that." The sound of a car pulling up made them look. Mrs. Thompson was climbing out, carrying what looked like a photo album. "I hope I'm not interrupting," she called out. "Not at all," Evelyn said, standing and brushing dirt from her knees. "We were just finishing up." Mrs. Thompson settled into one of the porch chairs, and Evelyn joined her while Lily ran off to help Jack with the greenhouse, which mostly consisted of handing him the wrong tools and asking a million questions. "I wanted to show you something," Mrs. Thompson said, opening the album. It was full of photographs from the day the bikers had come, candid shots of the gathering, of the town coming together, of barriers being broken. "David took these," Mrs. Thompson explained. "He's putting together a display for the library about prejudice and redemption, about what this town learned." Evelyn studied the photos. There was one of Jack crouching down to talk to Emily, his scarred hands gentle on her shoulders. One of Reaper lifting a child onto his motorcycle while the parents watched, no longer afraid. One of the whole crowd gathered around the fire pit, faces illuminated by warmth and something more, understanding. "We were so wrong," Mrs. Thompson said quietly. "All of us. We saw the leather and the tattoos, and we assumed we knew the whole story. But we didn't know anything." "You were afraid," Evelyn said. "Fear makes us do foolish things." "It does." Mrs. Thompson paused. "But you weren't afraid." "Why?" Evelyn thought about that. "Because I'd already lost everything I could lose. My husband, my son. For years, I was just existing, going through the motions." She looked over at Lily, who was now covered in sawdust and laughing. "And then they came into my life, and suddenly I had a reason to wake up in the morning again. I wasn't going to let fear take that away from me." Mrs. Thompson wiped her eyes. "You saved them, you know. But I think they saved you, too." "Yes," Evelyn agreed softly. "They did." That evening, as the sun set in shades of gold and pink, the three of them sat on the porch together, Jack in Thomas's old rocking chair, which he'd finally fixed and made his own, Lily between them reading a book, and Evelyn in her chair, knitting a blanket. It was an ordinary moment, the kind of moment that happens in families all over the world every single day. But for Evelyn Carter, who'd spent 15 years eating dinner alone at a table set for 3, who'd lived in a house full of ghosts and silence, this ordinary moment was everything. "Grandma Evie," Lily looked up from her book. "Will you always be here?" Evelyn set down her knitting and pulled the little girl close. "Always, sweetheart. This is our home. All of ours." Jack met her eyes over Lily's head, and his expression said what words couldn't. "Thank you. For everything. For believing in us when no one else would." Evelyn smiled. "No," she thought. "Thank you for bringing life back into this old house. For filling it with laughter and love and purpose." As darkness fell over Millbrook, lights began to wink on in windows up and down Maple Street. Inside those houses were families having dinner, watching television, going through the comfortable routines of daily life. And in the house at the end of the street, the one with the newly painted fence and the blooming garden and the Harley-Davidson parked in the driveway, there was a family, too, different from what anyone expected, bound not by blood but by choice, by kindness, by the fundamental truth that family is what you make it. Outside, the wind chimed through the bells Jack had hung from the porch, a gift from the bikers, inscribed with a simple phrase, "Home is where they accept you." And in that moment, as the three of them sat together in the gathering darkness, surrounded by warmth and love and the simple peace of belonging, Evelyn knew that after 15 years of winter, spring had finally come. Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.